Hey, this is Notser, and today we're taking a look at Odin. This is the premium tier 8 German battleship. Yes, another premium tier 8 German battleship, but this one's got some unique flavor. We're going to talk about the armor, stats, build, and showcase some gameplay. Let's take a look at the armor right now, and as you can see, it's not bad. 32 millimeters at the bow and stern. At the waterline on the front, it's 60. At the rear, it's 90. It has 45 millimeters at the top of the hull, 320 at the waterline. We have 50 millimeter deck, 19 millimeter superstructure. It does have turtle back. On the front, it's 200 millimeters to punch into the citadel. On the rear, it is only 150. So for those of you who thought, oh, well, I could use that 90 millimeters. No, you can't. Because this is a very vulnerable position. You've got that raised deck where you could potentially, with AP, side pin and stick in the ship and, possibly even get to the citadel. So kind of workable armor, but don't bait yourself into getting in trouble. Hit points are 52,800. We have 22% torpedo protection. This has 9 305 millimeter guns on 3 gun turrets. It has a 20-second reload. It takes 30 seconds to traverse 180 degrees with these guns. It has a maximum dispersion of 251 meters. The HE shell only does 3,600 damage, 27% fire chance, 75 millimeters of HE penetration as of 9.1. It should be in 9.2, 76. The AP shell does a monster 9,400 damage. It has a maximum range of 19.1 kilometers. The gun velocity is very usable at 865 meters per second for both shells. As far as secondaries are concerned, we have a 128 millimeter and a 150. Now, that's really exciting because we basically get the GK secondary setup at tier 8, which means in 9.2, we're going to have 32 millimeter base pin on our 128s and 38 millimeter pin on our 150s. So we are going to be monster class against equal tier and honestly higher tier battleships that have 32 millimeters. You're going to do tons and tons of damage to them, and I can't wait for 9.2 to come out to test the ship more, because obviously 31 millimeters, I would need IFHE to jump that up to 32. But it's really cool that the GK secondaries made it down to tier 8. It also has torpedo tubes. They're on the back half of the ship. Same 6-kilometer range German that you expect. They are on the top of the hull, so they are vulnerable to fire, and you do need to be careful. Germans, they always break. For the AA system, 249 continuous with the short and medium range, with medium doing the bulk of the damage. The flak has 5 shell bursts that do 14,700 damage. It has a speed of 30 knots, a turn radius of 790 meters, a rudder shift of 14.1 seconds, a base detectability by sea of 14.8, 9.9 kilometers by air, and then when it is firing, it has a smoke fire penalty of 11.9 kilometers. Now, let's showcase some gameplay. Going to talk about the build, the consumables that comes with the ship, and hopefully you guys can learn some more about the Odin. So, as you might imagine, it's a secondary battleship. You're going to build it a secondary build, but this secondary build will not include IFHE at all, period. Do not take IFHE because you don't need the penetration. You get it baked into the base version of the ship. Now, obviously, 9.1, that was the stat sheet you saw, but in 9.2, which is the earliest possible patch you could actually have the ship, it will have 32 millimeters for the 128 penetration, and then for the 150 millimeter secondary gun, it will have 38 millimeters. So more than adequate at engaging equal or higher tier battleships, and especially low tier. Now, obviously, you don't have to take it. This is my typical GK secondary build. Everything there is very straightforward. You've seen it from me before. There's no surprises there. Manual, advanced, fire prevention. Now, that's not the only thing that's unique about the ship. Obviously, the gun systems are different, a smaller gun caliber, but you do get more of them. So it does feel like it has more consistent accuracy, even if it is using German accuracy. And it's absolutely using German accuracy. And of course, we're trying to get into secondary gun range, but obviously we're not there yet. Now, because of the way these shells work, I would recommend you firing AP predominantly. The HE shell is pathetic, honestly. the damage output, the fire chance, the whole kit and caboodle. It's not as impressive as that AP shell. So you'll find yourself firing predominantly AP at targets that obviously are vulnerable, and the only exception is if you don't have any possible location that you can punish. Now, we also have an interesting setup, which you may or may not notice. I am actually using torpedoes, and I have hydro, both equipped at the same time to this ship. So, unlike the Torpedos, which for the longest time had the excuse that, oh, you can't have torpedoes and hydro. That's overpowered. Okay, fine. The Bismarck, oh, you can't have torpedoes if you have hydro. Well, I guess that rule doesn't apply to this ship because you get hydro and you get torpedoes, both of which synergize very well with secondary builds, and it just aligns the ship to focus very much on close to medium range brawling. And if there's one aspect of this game that I love playing, it's close to medium range brawling. It's very fun, and just like the GK, you can feel very dominant, very rewarding, and it's just very satisfying to see these guns just constantly pin the opponent, set fire to them, and then, you use your 305s, and maybe even potentially using your torpedoes, which is always fun because that definitely does extra damage to those battleships that think, oh, he just has secondaries. Oh, we can deal with that. No, you can't, friend. Other traits of the ship, the back half is a little bit more vulnerable than the front half to incoming damage, so be careful of that. The gun range, 19.1, is a little bit shallow for tier 10, but it's just fine at tier 8. And in fact, the scout aircraft ends up honestly being a bonus at this tier. But it's a welcome one. And speaking of bonuses, we just blapped that Atlanta out of the match. One aspect of the ship that is changing for the worse in 9.2 is that arm time of the AP shell. It's going to be extended out, so it's not quite as effective against lightly armored ships. It will take more time for the shell to arm, therefore pass through more armor and potentially overpin. So just keep that in mind. It is something about the ship that is changing negatively, but we're getting the secondary build buff in 9.2, which is way more of a benefit than the activation time in most instances, if you're trying to play this as a secondary. If you're not playing it as a secondary, why do you have the ship? This ship is screaming a secondary battleship. It is trying to combine all of the great traits of secondary battleships and make it into something worth experiencing at tier 8. And honestly, through playing this, plus with Gunther, look at those shell tracers, it's a real pleasure. I love the extra penetration. I love the gun caliber, honestly. The 305s work very nicely on this ship, which is hilarious because they don't work very nicely on the tier 9 heavy cruiser. The damage output's just really low. But at tier 8, as sort of honestly a secondary trait, yeah, it works just fine. Switch to HE, no big deal. It's got good maneuverability. It's pretty tanky. It does notice that 10,000 hit point nerf, though, that came from version 1 to version 2. This ship definitely misses that against certain targets, which can completely ignore some of your armor aspects. You will just take a ton of damage, and you'll watch as your health rapidly decreases. But against other targets, which you can angle your armor, you are incredibly powerful against them. And, it is what it is. It was a ship that was overperforming in the previous version, and that was prior to the IFHE pin buff, which is going to be, godlike as far as I'm concerned. I can't wait to play it on my GK, and of course, if I get a tier 8 GK, yeah, I can't wait to play it on my Odin. You have the AP shell, which is getting changed, but you got the Hydro and the Torps. And the Hydro and the Torps combined together makes it so you can be aggressive. You can push into that person and know that you can see their torpedoes, but you can also send yours against them. It is just a great combination. It's one that, the Hindenburg and the German cruisers get to experience, and honestly, the German DDs, but not a lot of these special premium German battleships. They were, for the longest time, omitting this combined feature for whatever reason. Maybe they just felt like it was too much. Well, the problem is here's the problem. We're trying to dodge the torpedoes, and we've got a DD. He's attached to us, and I'm showing him the way. This is the way to survival, my little DD friend. And we do just fine. Secondaries are firing off on this enemy. It looks like he's actually just outside of detection because, obviously, Cyclone, which I'm not going to complain. I got torpedoes, hydros, secondaries. I got the full package to make myself incredibly effective during Cyclone. So we're just trying to move forward, possibly engage the Ranger, which I think he actually was just killed. So our AA is just trying to finish him off and minimize the damage we take, which isn't too bad. There is, of course, an enemy in smoke, and the majority of the opponents are actually in a B point, which, unfortunately, because of Cyclone, I can't see them to shoot them. So I just have to accept that I'm going to either continue towards this target that's in smoke or turn towards B and possibly get a little bit of side flanking fire and maybe even secondary hits. Now, you see the loadout, you heard the comparisons, GK secondaries, the torpedo hydro combos, really nice. The gun systems, the 305s, it's a good gun caliber for this. It works. Could it be the 380s? Well, if it was 380s, we'd probably have to give up more than, honestly, what players would be willing to give up. It might have to force it to 4, maybe 6 guns, and I don't really think that that's good. I think that with German accuracy, having more smaller guns is a better proposition than having fewer larger guns with worse accuracy. It's just, you're going to be disappointed. You might as well be disappointed that you can't pin a great big battleship at medium long range with your AP and Citadel him. That's not a big deal. You can easily do really good, healthy broadsides because the AP shell on the 305s for the Germans is probably the best in the game at this gun caliber. And if it's not the best, it's the second best. It's that good. So don't overlook that. But if you're an opponent against this target, force him to fire his HE shell because it's really, really bad. I haven't seen a shell this bad in a long time, and I've played a lot of this game. I can't fathom for the life of me why Wargaming seems to treat the Germans as second-class citizen when it comes to their gun systems. They always end up giving up so much for so little. Like, okay, you get 1/4 HE pin. Well, that means that your HE shell is going to do 2,000 less damage, and you're going to be forced to have to deal with targets that easily angle against you, or your accuracy, your built-in secondary, or your built-in Sigma is so pathetic that you could quite easily engage a target at close range and still miss with half of your shots, which doesn't feel good either. So it's like, what's it going to be? Are you going to make this gun to perform the best it possibly can be, but at a smaller gun caliber, or are you going to punish it further because for whatever reason Germans don't deserve to have anything that's good as far as gun systems are concerned? It's the concern that I have, but clearly, perfectly broadside target. We did like 14,000 damage, no Citadel whatsoever, no big deal, right? And this is obviously a low-tier ship, so our penetration is mimicking what you can expect against tier 8, 9, and 10 battleships, which is a lot. And are we going to finish them with our secondaries? No, we don't. But we can transition our secondaries right to the Shiratsuyu, and they're going to do full damage because they have more than enough penetration. And we just need to catch this guy. And, he's opening up his angle to us. He's the only ship left in the match. And, yes, we do. We end up finishing him off, and that's the game. And we ran through that quick. But, the Odin runs through things very quickly, and in fact, I think it's going to run through it much faster in 9.2. That extra pin, it's intimidating. Torpedoes and hydro, this is a full frontal brawler that wants to go straight towards the target and not stop until they're dead. Clearly in this game it was a blowout, not going to talk about that. Leave in the comments what you think of this version, and also leave in the comments what you think of a GK-esque secondary setup down here at Tier 8. Is that good for the game, or is that bad for the game? Tell me what you think. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to check out more of my content, you can click the most recent or the most relevant uploads. You could also choose to subscribe to my channel. We do daily Notser videos, first impression, how-to, news, and review related. My North American recruit invite is on the screen. You can take advantage of that. I stream at twitch.tv/Notser. Thank you, have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.